Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for our next episode of Masters of Product. Our topic for today is how do you build an AI-empowered product team in a high-scale, high-growth, high-fast SaaS company like CentralSquare. And to help us do that, we actually have Brian Fugere. Brian is actually the former CPO for CentralSquare. He has over 35 years of experience spanning technology, healthcare, and public safety. He's on to bigger and better things, which I unfortunately can't talk about it yet, but we'll get to him on the next episode for that one. As for me, I'm your host, Mustafa Kapadia. I help product organizations use AI to become more effective and efficient. You can learn more about me and my services at echo-point.com. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm glad we're doing it. I know this was all very last minute. I know you're in transition between one big thing to another big thing, so I appreciate you taking the time.
No, it's good. It's good. We've done a lot of good work together, and I'm excited to share the results.
Yes, we've had some fantastic times. I know we started this journey almost about two and a half months ago. Yeah. So I would love for you to just kind of start there, if that's okay with you.
Just a quick history. I joined CentralSquare earlier this year as the Chief Product Officer. It's a company that's focused on public safety and public administration. They just rebranded yesterday, so go check out the new brand on the website. It's very exciting. It's actually really cool, and I was lucky enough to be involved with that process. And the product team had, 50-ish or so people, UX team, tech writing team, and we're very focused on today's fires. And so as Mustafa and I sort of talked about how do we work together to go address that, we launched a plan, and like you said, we dove into it about a couple months ago.
Yeah, this is great. When we first start, well, we've talked quite a bit, but when we first started talking about the transformation in CentralSquare, it goes without saying that using AI for product management is now becoming table stakes, right? You just can't do your work without it. But you had a different vision as well. You want to have this leapfrog philosophy, which I think is quite unique. But unique, yes, but I think more and more people are catching on to it. Can you share with me what that meant? Because, when we first talked about it, I'm like, Brian, this makes perfect sense. And by the way, you had this vision almost 6 to 8 months ago. It just took us that long to come together to work on it. So
I had a hypothesis. So I want in my prior company before CentralSquare, I was with Simpler, which is in the healthcare space. Mustafa and I had worked together to educate the team at Simpler on leveraging AI within their day-to-day workflow. And it was a good first effort. We were both learning on sort of how to do this at scale and to really kind of drive operational improvements by leveraging AI. And as I got to CentralSquare, I really had this hypothesis in mind that you could transform a product team pretty dramatically by leveraging AI at the core of what you do on a daily basis by having two things. One was a really strong product operations team that could enable a standardized approach across the entire portfolio. And then the other was, and this is sort of the non-traditional controversial part, which was we leveraged a product manager, product owner model. So the PM-PO model has been around for a long time. I don't think we needed POs anymore. And I felt like with the ability to do your day responsibilities as a product manager more efficient and be more accurate, more productive, and produce more materials in depth for engineering to power engineering, the product owner role became less important to have. And I thought in going into this that we could then elevate the product owners into a different role within the company. And so some of them I figured would become product managers because they were already kind of acting that way. Some of them could go into product operations if they had a passion for that. We were launching a platform operations or a platform product management team, so some could go into that. And I was standing up a product marketing team, and so I needed some help in the product marketing area. And so I approached this as a way of creating human capital assets that could be redeployed rather than eliminating jobs. And what we found was that you could actually do that. And so I was pretty excited to see that the hypothesis was going to pay off.
No, it was great, and you know what? I mean, this thing is moving so fast. We're still in the process of redefining what it looks like, our
Yeah.
jobs, our roles, our functions, and so I think when we start talking about the idea about how do we take these two somewhat similar functions, right? Product owner, product manager, and how do we make them more effective and efficient, right? Like you said, move them into either product management roles, so you actually have a much deeper bench of PMs, or move them into a platform role, or move them into the transformation role, and then help them actually help transform the company.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great way. In fact, after our conversation, I've seen more and more companies actually do exactly that, right? So your hypothesis is turning out to be fantastic, and we've actually talking to a few clients who are in the process of doing that as well.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I get down to the
No,
nitty
let's
gritty,
go.
if that's okay? So tell me, when you first came into CentralSquare, or when you had this vision about this transformation for your organization, right? What are some? I know you alluded to some of the problems before, but what are some of the problems that you were seeing with your PMs and POs? Um, let's start there, and then we can talk about how you think AI can help you uniquely solve that solution or solve that
Yeah,
problem.
I think, and I've seen this at other companies. This is not just a CentralSquare thing by any stretch. We had it at Simpler. I've had it in other companies before that, where the product team, by the nature of product management and the role that product managers play, they end up at the center of the company and are all intimately involved with all issues that affect customers and the customer experience.
Right.
And if you think about where the product management role is maturing to over time, we all want these mini general manager type roles as
Yeah.
for product managers. They have to think about the entire experience, the entire P&L. And if you think about that in terms of, do I have enough hours in the day to do that job by myself? I can't.
Yeah.
And that's where the PO role actually came from years ago, is because the product manager needed help doing the stuff to
Right.
enable engineering, and the product owner role ended up getting created to go do that.
Right.
Well, now with the evolution of work and the ability with AI, we can address that. And so when you run into issues like what I've seen at CentralSquare and other places, where the product team is focused on the day to day, they're getting pulled into customer escalations, they're fighting fires, they're working with success to go talk to customers, they're working with sales to go close a deal, they're working with engineering to go figure out what's the next thing to go build. They're dealing with support and all the things coming into support. And you start adding that up from a time perspective, the future gets lost in today.
Yeah.
And ultimately, product's role is to define the future. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? And what does that customer experience look like? And if you can't give the product team the time to do that and they get stuck in today, then the company ultimately suffers from that and the customers suffer from it because you're not innovating the way you should. And
Makes
that's where Mustafa and I are like, okay, let's go blow things up and we'll do it a different way.
well, and to add to it, it wasn't just the PMs and the PO roles that we're thinking about. We're also talking about how you can take the engineering managers
Yeah,
and the UX people and up-level all of them as well, because ultimately you need all of those functions to help you build a product, right?
that's right.
And so the closer you get the PMs and the engineers to work together, which is what traditionally was the job of a PO, and now you have AI to help you do that, that makes a huge difference, right?
It
Um,
does, because what, as we get into the details of the sort of the success and the results that we were able to generate, the one that we haven't measured yet is the acceleration in speed. And if you think about how fast, and ultimately what we want is a product team that is leading the company and leading engineering and going as fast as possible and pulling everybody along to that designed future.
yes.
If you can get your partners to come along with you, like UX or engineering and
Yeah.
others, then and architecture, really those three big ones, as your closest partners, then everybody accelerates, and it's a good
Yes.
win for
Yeah.
ultimately for the customers.
Yeah. And it sets the tone for a larger transformation, right? Because
Sure.
what we have seen with our clients is that once you get the product team to be more effective or start moving faster, it puts pressure on all the other teams that they work with. And now suddenly they have to say, oh my God, how am I going to work in this new environment? Because I'm getting more and more throughput to the product organization. I just can't do it. Right.
Right.
So by bringing them into the story much sooner, you're just making that process of the transformation much easier. Right.
Yeah.
So I know you alluded to it. So before we kind of talk about how we got there, let's first talk about the results that you guys achieved. Right. So share with us what you were share with the audience what you and your team was able to do in just I think it was just like 6 to 8 weeks. So
Yeah. So the process that Mustafa and I essentially inflicted upon the team was a series of boot
I'm
camp.
not sure if I like the word inflicted, but yes.
Oh, it was. It was great. It's funny because everybody's like, "What are we going to go do?" And I said, "Trust me, you're going to love it," and they did. So, from a usage perspective, if you think about pre-training, post-training, from a usage perspective, on average, the team was using AI maybe once a week in their day-to-day. Afterwards, they were all using it multiple times daily. And so, what does that translate to? So, if they're starting to use it and they're engaging with it, before training, those that were using it were using saving somewhere between 1 and 5 hours a week, and then some of them were not saving any time at all. So the average was probably like maybe a couple hours. After training, 40% were saving 15 to 20 hours a week. The average was above 10 hours a week. So if you think about that, now we just gave back 25% of their time on a weekly basis to do other things, do more things. And they were providing more depth and more resources to the engineering organization to help engineering go faster and to do their work more efficiently because the quality of the artifacts were so much better. So if you think about creating requirements and user stories and release notes and all of the things that go into feeding an engineering organization and enabling the customer and enabling the rest of the company, if a product manager can create that and save 25% of their week or more, all of a sudden you have just kicked your entire team into hyperdrive.
100%.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and not just that, to go back to your team, is that not only were they doing their current job better, but they're now even doing more because if you remember, so many of our PMs started doing prototyping, as in not just give requirements, which is a two-dimensional document, but to build prototypes that you can then hand off to engineering.
Right.
So now you have a three-dimensional and you have a much richer conversation.
That's right.
Or the fact is that you can talk to synthetic users and digital twins to help identify problems even before you release a product, right? And so it's not just about that. I agree with you, the time saves is huge.
Yeah.
But the effectiveness of your team just over time saves you. And unfortunately, that it's hard to capture that time because, like, we save time. I mean, sorry, we save time further down the stream, which is always hard to measure. But
that's right.
But it has a huge impact, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I was so happy about was just the general sense of engagement of the team.
That's
and
right.
So if you think
We
about
did measure that as well. Yes.
Yeah, if a team that's bogged down in today and they're getting beat up constantly, their engagement as employees is not going to be the greatest. And over half of my team would self-describe themselves as less engaged.
Yeah.
After the training, after they saw that as I told them, the future is now, and we're going to go into the future. Over 60% of them were significantly more engaged, and so the level of engagement translates into the excitement for the job, translates into the adoption of these new tools, the standardization of the tools across the entire portfolio, because everybody's saying, "Hey, look at what I did. This is really cool." And then the next person says, "Oh, I want to try that. I want to adopt it. And then I'm going to improve upon it, and I'll share it back, and I'll share it, and I'll sneeze it across to all of my friends." And all of a sudden, there's this virtuous cycle of everybody trying new things, improving and building upon it with each other in a really positive environment. And that to me was the greatest win out of everything.
I mean, you definitely your team was very engaged. You can everybody goes through the same curve in which first they're skeptical, Like, what am I getting myself into? And suddenly they start figuring out how they can use AI more effectively and to use it properly. And then suddenly, oh my God, there's so much more I can do.
Yeah.
And that engagement level goes just through the roof. And like you said, it's a virtuous cycle. It's infectious, right? One person does it. I'm like, of course I can do the same thing and I can do it better. And it starts snowballing the transformation. Um, in addition to doing what you just shared with you, there were a lot of your PMs who actually built some really cool stuff while they were part of the program, right? I don't want to. We had one PM who actually built an entire product, right? We had another one. We had another one who actually simplified the entire requirements management process.
Yeah.
We had others who were actually building up and standing up synthetic users. Tell me of all the things that you saw them build. Which one did you like the most, or which one impressed you the most?
I mean, all of those that you mentioned were great. I think what everybody did as sort of like a end of the course hackathon, what everybody built was awesome. The thing that has stuck with me was the public safety side of the business is a highly regulated, as you can imagine, a highly regulated
Yeah.
environment, just like healthcare is. And when the regulations change, you have to read through all these regulations. You have to figure out, what do I need to do to my
Yes.
product to go meet the new regulatory requirements? One of the product owners built a process using AI to analyze the existing regulatory regulations compared to the new regulations or the draft proposed ones, and it would spit out and articulate the changes that were necessary to understand the new environment and what would have to happen to the product. Now, was this the coolest thing that was built? No, but it's the one that stuck with me because at the core of what they do and the core of a product manager's responsibility to understand the market, where the market is evolving to, and if you are in a regulated environment, monitoring that and keeping up with those changes is a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And so now we've got this tool that every product manager within the company can now use, that when a regulation is changing, you have the ability to see what that
Yeah.
impact is going to be, and you can get ahead of it. And to
100%.
me, that one little thing is so powerful that it stuck with me from the first time
Yeah.
I saw the demo.
Sometimes the simplest use cases have the biggest
Yeah,
impact, right? And if I remember that correctly, at least with that, with the gentleman that you're talking about, it used to take him anywhere between a month and a half to do what he did, and he
yeah,
was able to cut it down to a day. I mean,
yeah.
that is, you know, we're not talking about 25% savings here. We're
No,
talking from a month to one day, so that's almost 29 days of
it's
um,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, it
and
really
you
is.
and you make sure now that you're not missing anything. Nothing
That's
falls
right.
through the cracks,
That's right.
right? This is and you're right. Almost everything that they did in the AI challenge was fantastic, and I loved it.
Yeah.
There was, I don't know if you recall this, but there was this one lady. She was a PO. She had never built anything in her life before the program, right? And then by the end of the program, she's like, Mustafa, I've built like 5 productivity apps,
Yeah.
right?
It's awesome. It
And she's
really
like,
is.
and not only that, but I'm actually going to release it to the rest of my organization. We're going to release it to customer service, and they're going to start using this as, instead of talking to me all the time, they can now talk to my productivity app,
Right.
and now helping them become better, and I'm saving myself time, right?
Right.
So
Right.
the creativity that you release, the infection that Brian talked about,
Yep.
is absolutely amazing. Because ultimately, in my opinion, product managers are creative people. You
Yeah.
don't get into this business if you're not creative, right?
Or you certainly don't last long, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so this helps unleash that. Um, so we kind of talked about the challenges, we talked about the results. Let's talk about the approach and the strategy that we used, right? So tell me, there was a lot of work that happened before I got there. There's a lot of work that we did together.
Yep.
There's a lot of work that we're going to do, but now you have a new opportunity, so that's a different story.
Yeah.
But tell me more about your process.
Yeah, I mean, I think for any new CPO rolling or an existing CPO, as you look across your organization and you realize that there's a better, faster, stronger way to do things, and you really want to supercharge, what we've come through a course of the years is a series of tools that have enabled us to do that. And if you think back years and years and years ago, when we didn't have Jira or AHA or anything like that, everything was done in Excel. And I remember the days of spreadsheets that were so long with just requirements listed in this giant matrix and trying to update it and keep it going and provide enough detail. It was such a pain.
Yeah.
And then AHA and Jira emerged, and all of a sudden we have tools to help us do our jobs better, and we all got better at what we did. The AI revolution, if you want to call it that, and the ability to incorporate Gen AI into the day-to-day for product managers is going to be the next change, and it's already
100%.
here. And we all have to get on board with it. And like I mentioned earlier, Mustafa and I tried this at my prior company, and we did a good job of what we knew at the time, and we really enabled them to go faster. We did it again at CentralSquare, and we got significantly better results because we just knew more. And this technology and the application of it is changing so fast, where you need to partner with someone like Mustafa, who's got his finger on the pulse of this, so that you can keep up with the latest and greatest at all times. It is not something that you can casually observe, because if you can inject that new technology and the new processes into your operations, you can dramatically change things, how you work, the nature of the work, and you can significantly change the day-to-day environment for your people in a much more positive way. Now, as you evaluate your team, the thing that I looked at was, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to ask my team to learn these new skills, what are the things that I have to do to make sure that it sticks? Because making this investment in time and in money is great, but if it doesn't hold, then it's waste. And so
100%.
the first thing that I did actually on arrival was, I need a product ops leader, and I need to build a product ops function, because we need to be able to take the output. I always had this course in mind, and I knew I wanted to put the team through it, but I needed an ability to standardize the learnings across the entire portfolio. It's cool that this person built this thing and they understand how to use AI this way, but I need everybody to do that.
Yeah.
And I need a product operations function to take the best of what everybody created and everybody understands, and then standardize that across the entire portfolio, not only within product, but then in all of our internal stakeholders. It changes how we work with them. And if you don't have a product operations function or something like that, where you can create that standardization of operation and the interfaces with your stakeholders, then you need to do that first, because you have to have that capability in place. Otherwise, you're just throwing away money. Because it's like any other training course, you teach somebody something, they'll retain 40%, and a week later they retain 10%, and then
and then it fades away.
It fades away. And so you've got to have that reinforcing function to make sure that it stays a part of your day-to-day operations. So you have to change how you do things.
100%. What I really enjoyed about the two of us working together, and you're right, we learned a lot after our engagement at Simpler, right? Is that a lot of what we do with our clients about setting the right foundation, that's stuff that you already did. So for example, making sure that you had a product ops people to help drive the transformation, right? Making sure that AI is not considered to be a bad word in an organization, right? Because there's a lot of companies we work with in which people are scared of using AI because they feel like either it's cheating or it's going to take their jobs away, right? And so setting the tone and getting the ground fertile for transformation made a huge difference, which allowed us to then get into the stage 2, which is really the enablement part that we talked about. That's right. Because, and the other thing that we did differently, which I think is quite good, is that it's not just the enablement part, it's all the things that happen before and after, right? So we spent a lot of time assessing your team just to get data and benchmarking and baseline to figure out where things are. And then at the end of it, at the other end of the enablement part, is that we actually ended up working with them one-on-one to actually build something that they can do with AI so they can make their jobs easier, right? So it's almost like the enablement part became, in fact, it shrunk, while the other two parts, we expanded it just so that you can get to that transformation. And then, like you said, just like we were talking about the other day, it's like, that's just, we're just getting started, because the next problem to solve is, now you have momentum, now you have energy. How do you take that and then transform and codify all the things that you're doing, right? Um, but you're absolutely right. I think being much more strategic and being much more holistic makes a huge difference. Because a lot of time I go into my clients and like, well, Mustafa, we just want training. I'm like, well, that doesn't work. Because you know what? I can train them, but I guarantee you they will forget it in about a week,
Yeah,
right? And you will not get the results that you're getting because if they don't implement it, if they don't use it, then what's the
right,
point? Or
right,
or worst case scenario is only a few people catch on to it and everybody else doesn't do it.
right.
And now that's a waste of time and money, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I think your holistic point of view really helped accelerate what we could do in 6 to 8 weeks. Um, but it was not easy either, right?
No.
There were a lot of challenges along the way. Um, I'm curious, what, in your opinion, what was the hardest part as we were going through this program?
I think and you had hinted at it and talked about it a little bit. Is the cultural aspect of AI is coming from my job,
Yeah,
and as the group leader, as our functional leader, I had to really be firm in saying, I am not coming for your jobs. I am coming to make you more productive and to give you an
yeah,
opportunity to do other things because I'm going to give you a new way of doing it. Product management is changing, it is evolving, it always does, but is going through a rapid evolution right now. And we need to get to that future state because it will save you so much time. It will reduce the the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis and give you a chance to really do the things that you want to go do.
yeah,
And I think as they started going through the course, they started to really understand that that was the case and to trust in the vision. And then when we got to the challenge phase after the education, they really jumped in with both feet. And like I said, everybody who participated
yeah,
created something just amazing. And I was so happy and proud and impressed because I know it
yeah.
will enable them to be far more successful in the future.
100%. You and I love the working relationship that we have, and both of us are so visionary, right? Because we know where things are going, and I'm sure. Well, we've spent a lot of time just analyzing what we did um, in the last few months. But if it's okay, let's talk about the future a little bit, right?
Yeah.
In your opinion, think about where Central Square is now, and think about where the role of product is changing over time, right? If you had to put your future hat on in 3 to 5 years, how do you think teams are operating and behaving, right? Or how does the product function change?
Yeah, I think the move towards sort of that mini general manager model is going to continue to evolve, where product managers will be asked to be more, to steal the engineering term, more full stack than ever before.
Yeah,
Where it's not only are you thinking about the product and the features and the requirements and all the things that go through the day to day of what a traditional product manager has to do, but now it's about competitive analysis, market analysis, strategy, P&L management, customer experience management, which includes implementation and training and support. And you need to start thinking much more holistically about that entire customer experience from the minute that somebody talks to them
yeah,
from either marketing or sales all the way through to the end, to the time where they're happy as a customer and they become a reference for you, and what
yeah,
happens in between. Now you have to think about, how do I build that experience and how do I manage it across the entire function? And so we're asking you to become a cross-functional leader
yeah,
without direct leadership responsibilities. So
yeah,
your ability to lead from an influence perspective has to be more capable than ever before. You have to understand the financial aspects of what's happening more than ever before. And on top of all of that, you got to do your day-to-day product stuff better than
yeah,
ever before,
yeah.
because you need time to do the other stuff.
I think I agree with you. I think the entire scope of what it means to be a product manager is changing.
Yeah.
Because you are now thinking about across the entire customer journey, which is another way of saying that you have to think across company silos, which is never easy, right? You have to be much more strategic. You have to have you have to have a much more both strategic and a tactical mind, which is also hard, right? And on top of it, you have all of these other actors like designers and architects and engineers that you need to figure out how to manage and harness. Um, I do agree that the role of the product organization is going to change significantly, right? Um, and it's something actually you mentioned earlier too, is that we're getting into an age in which building things is becoming easier and easier,
Right.
right? And so what we choose to build becomes even more important,
Right.
right? Which bets do we take? Which bets do we not take? And that classically falls in the role of a PM organization,
Right.
right? And so it's a good place to be. There's a lot of moving parts. There's lots going on, right?
Not for the faint of heart, that's for
Not
sure.
for the faint of heart. But I mean, people like this is why I love working with people like you because you are on the bleeding edge, right? There's very few clients of ours who have actually pushed the envelope as far as you have, which is fantastic. If you had to, for people who are just starting off, right? Brian, you've had the opportunity to do this twice now, right? For people who are just starting off, any recommendations? Like, how do you get started? Like, what are the first 1 or 2 or 3 steps that they should take to just get their organization moving, right? And I would recommend that now is the time to move because this thing is
Sure.
going to change. This thing is moving much faster than you can ever imagine.
Yeah. First thing I would say is if you're not using one of the AI tools on a daily basis in your own life, you need to.
Yeah,
And it's not from the like it's going to be this life changing thing, although for some people it can be. It gives you the ability to understand the art of the possible. And I remember the first interaction that Mustafa and I had 2 or 3 years ago, where we started looking at how can we use something like this in product management. It really opened my eyes to where this could go,
that's
and
right.
that's what started me thinking about
Yeah,
all of these things about how can we change what we do because this is so powerful and it's such a strong enabler for the teams. So use it. Try, experiment. Feed it
yeah,
documents and ask it to analyze the document for you.
yeah,
Ask it to analyze multiple documents. Ask it to suggest a vacation trip for you. You'll be amazed at the things that it can do. And all you're doing there is just getting a better understanding of what it can do so that you can then take it and apply it in your day to day of work. Similarly, you want to do the same thing with your teams so that they don't feel like AI is a dirty word because they're already doing it in some form or fashion. And if they're not, then that's a different issue that you're going to want to explore. But set that stage for the acceptance of the technology into the day-to-day operations of your team so that everybody feels comfortable with it. And that creates that foundational level of
yeah,
understanding and acceptance within the culture of your team that said, this is just another tool like any other tool. Whether you use Jira or AHA, it doesn't really matter. Both of them do the same thing. And ultimately, they enable the product management function to be more efficient.
yeah,
This is just another one of those tools. But it is revolutionary in many ways about how we do what we do. So set that comfort zone. Then you can go and build from there. And that's where you start thinking about, all right, how can I leverage this tool to change how I do what I do so we can go faster, better, stronger, $6 million man kind of stuff.
yeah. I think that makes perfect sense. And to your point earlier, I think leaders and executives using AI is very important because if you don't use the technology, you don't really understand the art of the possible, right?
Yeah.
I do remember that conversation you and I were having, which was, to be honest with you, it was only about a year and a half ago, but it sounds like much longer.
Feels like
Um,
forever.
but that's when we're like, oh my God, look at all this you can do, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what started this whole revolution. Um, I'll give you another anecdote. I was talking to another client. He is actually he's a general manager at a large bank, right? And him and I were talking, and I kind of showed him what you can do, and he's like, Mustafa, can you build a digital twin for the CEO of my company? Because I want to be able to talk to my CEO and ask him questions that I could never ask before. And I'm like, yes, we can.
Yeah.
And let's do it. And he's like, listen, if you can do that, I mean, that would save my skin.
Yeah.
So there's things that you can do even at the executive level that will actually, AI will help you become even a better leader.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, think about a digital twin of your boss or the CEO or your customer and
yeah,
or the key personas that you have of your different customers,
yeah,
or your different buyers. I mean, all of a sudden now you have the ability to get some feedback that you could never get before without
yeah.
actually talking to them.
And ask those embarrassing questions that you could never ask directly,
Right.
right? And now you can get some feedback on it.
Right. Because then when you do talk to them, you're asking much better questions.
100%, right? Brian, as always, we're always running out of time. So one last question. You kind of mentioned this already, but I'm going to ask you anyways. How do you personally use AI? Any hacks that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, it's funny. I use it for all kinds of different things. From a work perspective, I use it to try to look around the corner. Who are the competitors out there that I'm not paying attention to? What are the key things that are happening from a regulatory environment? All that kind of
Mm.
stuff. Because it's just so hard to maintain awareness of everything that's going
Yeah,
on. This application of technology really helps you with that. On a personal thing, my wife and I were thinking about taking a quick weekend getaway. I said, hey, we'd like to go here. We want this kind of accommodation. We want to do these kinds of things. Plan an itinerary for me.
yeah,
It needs to be 4 days long. It spit out this itinerary. I sent it to my wife. I'm like, how would you like to go do this? And she said, this is awesome. Let's go. And so, it just takes the pressure off of trip planning, and makes it so much easier. So
yeah,
like everything else related to Gen AI is all about the prompt. And if you could get the prompt
yes,
right, you can have a heck of a vacation.
you can. By the way, on a funny story, I did the same thing with my wife, and she got mad at me because she's like, "Well, I'm supposed to plan the itinerary for our trip, not AI." So, in some
Yeah,
things, AI can do a lot, but it also depends on the audience.
that's right.
um, but this has been great, Brian. I can't wait to see what else we can do together. I
Yeah,
know you have big plans already, which I know we can't talk about yet. Um, but this is just the beginning. Thank you for
yeah,
being, first of all, thank you for being a great guest. Thank you for our partnership and the trust. I think we're on to something.
I
Yeah,
think so.
perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye for now.